as they start to lift some of the restrictions in the UK, Brendan, but it's not going smoothly at all.
No, not really. I mean, Boris has started to lift the restrictions far too mildly, in my view. Not that much has changed. It kicks off today. Today, we are allowed to go out to exercise more than once a day. If you can't work from home, you can go to work. And you're allowed to visit one other person outside, and you have to stay 2 meters away from them. I mean, those are fundamentally the changes that have taken place, which are not big changes at all. But the really alarming thing is that even though these are quite mild changes, the kind of chattering classes, the liberal elite, the media set has gone completely berserk, have said that we are lifting way too much and we need clearer instructions on what people are allowed to do. So the thing that is worrying lots of us here at the moment now is that there are some people who want us in lockdown forever by the looks of things. And I really think we need an honest discussion about how long this is going to last and how we're going to get out of this.
Well, the whole world's got to talk about that too, because we know we're likely to be dealing with living in a COVID world for at least a year to come, maybe longer. One thing that staggers me, Brendan, is reading today that the UK is only now looking at bringing in quarantines for people coming into the country. In other words, up until now, you've had open borders. Surely this was the first line of defence against this pandemic. It certainly is the way Australia's tackled it, and that's what's been most successful.
The way Boris justified this, and I think there's an element of truth in it, his government argued that there wasn't really that much point in quarantining visitors when the virus was already in the UK and spreading pretty fast. I mean, it has spread pretty fast in the UK. We don't know how much of the population has got it. Estimates vary, but some experts think that a solid chunk of the British people have had the virus. So his argument was that it didn't make sense to try and keep the virus out of the country when it was here. And his argument is that once we get the virus under control, then it becomes more sensible to enforce these quarantine measures at the border. I mean, the great concern, of course, and Heathrow Airport and British Airways and others are raising this, is that this will devastate the tourism industry in the UK. Not many people will want to come here if they have to stay in a particular room for 2 weeks. So even that raises questions, even though it might be, as Boris says, a sensible measure to take now, it still raises questions about the devastation of our tourism industry. 40 million people come to the UK as tourists every year. It's a huge chunk of our GDP. So this is a serious problem too.
Well, this is Australia. We have just killed our tourism industry stone dead. And this is the point in Australia. We've done all that, and now we virtually have no infections, yet how do we get our economy starting again? It's an absolutely diabolical dilemma. Tell me, when you're looking at this from the UK, which obviously has a much greater problem with the virus than Australia does now, how do you compare it to other countries? Germany seems to have done reasonably well. Donald Trump's in an enormous amount of political pain, all his usual enemies piling on him, yet the virus in per capita terms has done nowhere near the damage in the US as it has in some of the large European nations.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think we'll probably have to wait quite a long time to work out exactly why the virus hit some countries harder than others. My view is that it's not really surprising that London and New York in particular have been badly hit. I mean, these are both global hubs. They're both densely populated. They both have large migrant flows or large immigrant-descended communities, and we know that the comorbidities of COVID-19 are quite pronounced in some immigrant communities. So I think that's the reason why. And I think one of the things that lots of people are now starting to get irritated by in the UK is the exploitation of this crisis as a political weapon and the use of it to score points against the Tory government in particular and against Boris Johnson. The left in this country has now become feverishly pro-lockdown. They're not thinking about the economic consequences at all. They're not thinking about the fact that the Bank of England is predicting the largest economic crunch since the Great Frost of 1709. They're not thinking about the millions who will lose their jobs. They seem to think that you can just close down an economy, close down production for months on end, and it won't have devastating consequences. So we have two problems in the UK right now. First, we have the problem of the virus itself, which we are finally getting on top of. Then we have the problem of the lockdown, which I think is going to be devastating in the long run if we don't start to ease it soon.
Thanks for joining us, Brendan. Great stuff.